Hello, dear listeners. I'm your host, Genevieve Hopkins, and welcome to episode 23 of the Wheel and Cross podcast. Beltane arrives next week in all its spring glory, and I'm looking forward to putting up my stag skull, the fun of trick-or-treating, and my own quiet Beltane celebrations. I'll light a candle on Beltane Eve, after the excitement of trick-or-treating has died down, try my hand at some divination, and maybe even jump over the candle for good luck, echoing the traditions we explored in episode 21, Lighting the Balefires. On Beltane Day, I'll wake up early, before the sun rises, walk down to the creek and to the flowering hawthorn tree I visit every year, wash my face in the morning dew underneath the tree, and tie clooties in its branches, similar to the Beltane traditions we explored in last week's episode 22, Springs, Wells, and Morning Dew. Then, leaving a gift for the hawthorn tree and asking its permission, so as not to anger the faeries, as the old folktales go, I'll cut a blossom-filled branch, bring it home, decorate it with ribbons, and fix it to the front veranda post, honouring an old tradition from my ancestral homelands in Western Europe, which we will explore in this episode about Beltane's more earthy delights, including the tradition of bringing in the maybush, going a-maying, garlanding, and dancing the maypole. This podcast is free, but if you like my work and would like to support me so that I can continue doing it, please consider a paid subscription on the Wheel and Cross Substack page, www.wheelandcross.substack.com. If that is not possible and you enjoy this podcast, I would really appreciate your reviews on any of the podcasting platforms you use. Feel free to share this podcast and leave comments on the podcast page. Welcome to episode 23 of the Wheel and Cross podcast. Beltane, the maybush, a-maying, and maypoles. As always, I would like to acknowledge the custodians of these lands on which I work and live in Australia's capital region, the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and I pay my deep respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations across Australia. All in this pleasant evening together come are we, for the summer spring so fresh, green and gay, will tell you of a blossom and buds on every tree, drawing near to the merry month of May. An English Maying song. As the spring celebration of Beltane, also called May Day, approached, flowers and greenery were gathered to decorate houses and churches across the European countryside, as well as ships' masts throughout fishing towns. Where flowers and greenery were difficult to come by, such as in cities or industrial towns, colourful ribbons were cheerfully substituted. Branches from different flowering trees or bushes were placed on the doors of houses, different species holding various meanings according to local custom. The most favoured was the blooming hawthorn, while others such as sloe, elder, crabapple, nettle and thistle were, in some places, marks of insult. The 16th century English poet Edmund Spence wrote about May Day traditions. Youth folks now flocken everywhere to gather May baskets and smelling brer, and home they hasten the posts to dight, and all the kirk's pillars ere daylight, with hawthorn buds and sweet eglantine, and garlands of roses, and sops in wine. The hawthorn tree, Crataegus species, often known as the May tree or white thorn, is a small deciduous tree native to Europe, North America, and parts of Asia. It's a richly symbolic tree and holds great significance in various cultures and traditions. In Eastern European cultures, the hawthorn was considered a symbol of protection and healing, and was often planted near homes to ward off evil spirits and protect against curses. Additionally, the hawthorn was associated with fertility and good luck. Its blossoms were sometimes used in rituals and celebrations related to love and the arrival of spring. In the Celtic nations, and Ireland in particular, the hawthorn tree has long been associated with the realm of faeries, particularly those trees standing alone in open fields or near sacred springs or wells. It was believed that these trees were inhabited by the Sheen, also known as the good people or fairy folk. Angering the fairies by cutting down their sacred home is still believed to bring misfortune. Many tales caution against disturbing these trees, and superstitions related to hawthorns often deter people from harming them even now. It is still considered unlucky to cut hawthorn wood or bring the blossoming boughs into homes or under roofs, except on May Day. In the Celtic Druidic tradition, hawthorn is represented in the Olm alphabet by the letter H, which stands for dualities, change, and liminal space, and was associated with protection and transformation. Due to their long and sharp thorns, hawthorns often served as a natural boundary or hedge, providing a protective barrier against negative energies and enchantments. Hawthorn is still one of the most important hedgerow plants that mark the boundaries between fields and properties throughout the British Isles. Hawthorn also has a long history of medicinal use. It is renowned for its ability to heal heart and circulation problems. The berries, leaves, and flowers of the hawthorn tree are used to make extracts, teas, and tinctures. These herbal remedies are believed to support cardiovascular health, help regulate blood pressure, and improve blood circulation. Additionally, hawthorn has been used to alleviate symptoms of anxiety and aid in digestion. It is also considered a symbol of hope and protection in herbal lore, providing physical and spiritual nourishment. Waken chaps and wenches gay, and off to country to gather May. From the 1924 book, Staffordshire Customs, Superstitions and Folklore. As with Beltane traditions of dew bathing and visiting springs and wells, the tradition of going a-maying was commonly practiced across Europe on the first day of May. Merry parties and picnics were held in wild forests and fields. Girls and young women made flower wreaths and braided flowers into their hair, and boys and young men competed against each other in impromptu games. This scene was famously described in Thomas Malory's Mort d'Arthur, The Death of King Arthur, when Queen Guinevere and her entourage spent the morning in the May woods and came home bedashed with herbs, mosses and flowers in the best manner and the freshest. May Day was also a time for young lovers to tryst or pledge their troth. Christian leaders bemoaned the improprietous behaviour that accompanied May Day celebrations, often involving uninhibited young people enjoying physical relationships. Bawdy songs filled with double entendre and metaphors for making love or having sex were written and sung. Like this English ballad by Thomas Morley in 1595. Now is the merry month of Maying, when merry lads are a-playing fa-la, each with his bonny lass, upon the greeny grass fa-la. Or this song from 1692 in The Pepys Ballads, edited by Hyder Edward Roberts, Cambridge, 1929. Thus the robin and the thrush music make in every bush, While they charm their pretty notes, young men hurl up maidens' coats. In the 15th century in England, women and young girls would make money by displaying and selling May garlands. This tradition was taken up by schools and expanded into processions. Young girls usually, but sometimes young boys too, dressed in May Day finery, decked in ribbons and flowers, and carrying displays of flowers and greenery, went door to door collecting money for their school. In some regions, they also sang May carols, crowned a May Queen, or danced with Jack in the Green. A person dressed as Jack in the Green would dance and cavort in some May Day processions, wearing a conical or pyramid-shaped costume made of wicker or wooden frame, covered in green foliage. These traditions are being revived, and it is now common to see May Day processions in towns, hamlets, and cities throughout England and the British Isles. In many countries around Europe, May Day has become a focal point for the labour movement, often marked with a public holiday, and sometimes involving Labour Day marches. Maypoles and dancing the maypole were once also common May Day customs throughout Europe and European colonies. Maypoles are tall wooden poles, decorated with flower garlands, ribbons and streamers, erected in fields and commons around which communities danced, feasted and drank together. This passage is recorded in Ronald Hutton's book, The Stations of the Sun, A History of the Ritual Year in Britain. They have 20 or 40 yoke of oxen, every ox having a sweet nosegay of flowers placed on the tip of his horns, and these oxen draw home this maypole, which is covered all over with flowers and herbs, bound about with string from the top to the bottom, and sometimes painted with variable colours, with 200 or 300 men, women and children following it with great devotion, and thus being reared up with handkerchiefs and flags hovering on the top. They strew the ground around about, bind green boughs about it, set up summer halls, bowers and arbours hard by it, and then they fall to dance about it. Competing villages often attempted to steal each other's maypoles, a tradition usually undertaken in the spirit of misrule fun, but which sometimes resulted in violence. Festivities featuring the maypole were most commonly found in the southern regions of the British Isles and Germanic countries, as well as throughout Slavic Europe. They are also a prominent feature of Swedish midsummer celebrations, where they are called Midsommarstång. Maypoles did not generally feature in the Gaelic regions, where the fire ceremonies dominated Beltane celebrations. In Germanic countries, the maypole is called Maybaum or May Tree, and the dancing is known as Tanzenden May. Dances could be as simple as wrapping ribbons around the maypole, or as complicated as weaving patterns or creating a gypsy tent. Maypole dancing became popular in Australia and in New Zealand during the late 1800s, and was performed until the 1960s at sports carnivals, picnic days and special events such as Empire Day and the annual combined public schools display at the Sydney Cricket Ground. I hope you have enjoyed this series of 4 episodes about Beltane. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you might like to incorporate some of these old traditions into your celebration of Beltane, or weave some Beltane traditions into your Halloween celebrations. The following suggestions can be adapted according to whatever belief system you hold, whether that is a particular religion, cultural practice, or no belief at all. Before Beltane, decorate your home with witches, skulls, skeletons, and ghosts bedecked with colourful ribbons and flowers. Enjoy trick-or-treating in costumes adorned with flowers and ribbons, or dress up as the Green Man or Green Woman. Fairies, many folktales depict more sinister versions of the modern fairies as we know them. or a character from your favourite story, fairy tale or folktale. You could light one or more candles when you get back from trick-or-treating and let it burn down to its base, always taking precautions around fire. You could place a candle on the floor and have your family and or friends jump over it 3 times for good luck. If this feels too unsafe for you, or if you have less mobile family members, place 2 candles on the floor and have your family or friends walk or move between them. You could have fun with divination. Try reading tarot or oracle cards, throwing runes or bones, scrying with a bowl of water, reading candle wax in water, or tea leaves in a cup of tea, or playing the Ouija board. For some, this will be a serious undertaking. For others, it will be a bit of fun that fits in with the spooky season. If your belief system is indisposed to this kind of activity, why not use this time to pray in whatever way suits you best? You could also make cluties and leave them under each family member's pillow until the morning. On Beltane morning, get up before dawn and journey to a hawthorn tree, bringing a basket with cluties, a gift for the hawthorn tree, food or drink. I'm sure the tree would appreciate some fertilizer tonic, for example, and a pair of sharp and clean secateurs. Wash your face in the morning dew underneath the hawthorn tree or from a grassy, flower-filled field, remembering that not only does the dew have the power to beautify a person's face and boost their health, it is also filled with magic according to folklore and holds the memories of all living things. Then, tie your cluties to the hawthorn tree, saying a prayer, wish, affirmation or words that seem most appropriate to you and your belief system. Ask the hawthorn tree for permission to remove one of its branches, to avoid angering the fairies. Cut one that seems most appropriate to you and to the hawthorn tree, and leave your gift in return. Go home and decorate the hawthorn branch with ribbons and other knickknacks, then tie it to a pillar on your front porch or veranda, or affix it to the front of your house in another way. If you are lucky enough to have the time, or if you delay your Beltane or Halloween celebrations until the weekend, why not get some friends and family together for a picnic in a forest or a field, or even get your community together and bring back the tradition of maypole dancing. The exciting and colourful Latin American tradition of Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, can also provide seasonally appropriate inspiration for this time of year, which we'll explore in next week's episode. Episode 24, Dia de los Muertos. Until then, waken chaps and wenches gay, and off to country to gather May. See you next week for episode 24, Dia de los Muertos.